A group of animals in a quiet American woodland noticed that their forest was being chopped down by loggers. Worried about losing their homes, they gathered around the oldest oak tree in the middle of the woods to ask for advice. The old oak creaked its branches and said, maybe the bears could scare those fellows away. So the bears marched out of the woods, growling and charging at the loggers. It worked for a little while, but before long, the loggers hired some hunters. Soon, there weren't any bears left to frighten anybody. The animals hurried back to the old oak tree and asked what to do next. The wise oak thought for a moment and said, perhaps the birds could swoop down and peck at them while they work. The birds dove and fluttered around the loggers' heads, making it hard for them to work. It helped for a bit, but the loggers soon brought in falconers. Before long, the birds had scattered and the logging continued. The animals returned once again, now very worried, because the loggers were getting close to the big oak. This time, the oak said, maybe the squirrels and mice can chew through the power cords on their tools. The little critters gnawed through the cables on the chainsaws and equipment, slowing the loggers down, but the men simply switched to handsaws and axes while their machines were fixed. Eventually, the day came when the loggers reached the great old oak itself. They chopped it down, and that night the remaining animals gathered sadly around the fallen tree. They asked one last time if there was anything they could do to save the rest of the forest. The old oak sighed weakly and said, sorry, folks, I'm stumped. Old Jim and Tony were sitting on a park bench one sunny June morning. Tony had just finished his morning 5K and wasn't even out of breath. Jim sat there amazed at his old friend's stamina and asked, at your age, how the hell do you manage to have so much energy? Tony thought for a moment, then grinned at his old pal. Well, Jim, I'll let you in on a little secret. It's rye bread. I eat it 3 times a day, keeps my energy high, and what's more, it gives me great stamina with the ladies. Let's just say my flagpole doesn't need any help standing to attention, even at my age. Jim was astounded that something as simple as rye bread could have such remarkable benefits. So, on his way home, he stopped at his local bakery. The saleslady asked if he needed help. Do you have any rye bread? He asked. Why, yes, we've got a whole shelf of it. It's our best seller, very popular. Would you like some? Would I? Jim exclaimed. I'll take 5 loaves. 5 loaves? My goodness. By the time you get to the 3rd loaf, it'll be rock hard. Jim paused, shook his head slowly, and muttered, I can't believe everybody in the world knows about this stuff but me. Bill was bragging to his boss one day. You know, I know everyone there is to know. Just name somebody, anyone, and I know them. Tired of the boasting, his boss said, oh, really? Okay, Bill, how about Tom Cruise? No problem, Bill replied. Tom and I go way back. So they fly to Hollywood, knock on Tom Cruise's door, and Tom opens it shouting, Bill, what's happening? Great to see you. Come on in for a beer. The boss is impressed, but still skeptical. Afterwards, he says, that could have been luck. Name someone else, Bill says confidently. President Obama. Old buddies, Bill replies. Let's head to Washington. They arrive at the White House, and sure enough, Obama spots Bill on the tour and waves him over. Bill, what a surprise! I've got a meeting, but you and your friend come in for a drink first and we'll catch up. Now the boss is shaken, but still not fully convinced. Afterward, he says, all right, Bill, Pope Francis. Sure, Bill says, I've known the Pope for years. So off they go to Rome. They're standing in St. Peter's Square among thousands of people when Bill says, there's no way he'll see me down here. I know the guards, though. I'll go up and come out on the balcony with him. Bill disappears into the crowd. About 30 minutes later, Bill appears on the balcony next to the Pope, waving to the massive crowd below. When Bill returns, he finds his boss on the ground, surrounded by paramedics. What happened? Bill asked. His boss looks up weakly and says, that was the last straw. You and the Pope came out on the balcony, and the guy standing next to me said, who's that bloke standing next to Bill? A grocer is restocking the vegetables when a woman taps him on the shoulder and asks, excuse me, sir, but where do you keep the spinach? The grocer replies, Well, ma'am, we're out of spinach today. We'll have more tomorrow, so please come back then. She nods and walks away. A few minutes later, she returns and taps him again. Sir, I was wondering where I could find the spinach. Confused, the grocer says, Ma'am, we are out of spinach today. We'll have more tomorrow morning. She smiles and thanks him, then walks off again. Moments later, tap, tap, tap. Pardon me, but do you know where the spinach is? Now, visibly irritated, the grocer says, Let me ask you something. How do you spell dog, like in dogmatic? She replies, D-O-G. Good. Now how do you spell cat, like in catatonic? C-A-T. Perfect. Now how do you spell frickin', as in spinach? She pauses. F? Wait a second. There's no F in spinach. The grocer throws his hands up and shouts, Lady, that's what I'm trying to tell you. Two sisters inherit the family ranch. Unfortunately, after just a few years, they're in financial trouble. To keep the bank from repossessing the ranch, they need to buy a bull to breed their own stock, but they only have $600. The older sister says, I'll take the bus to the stockyards since you need the pickup truck. If I decide to buy a bull, I'll contact you so you can bring the truck and trailer to haul it home. At the stockyard, she finds the perfect bull. The seller says, I'll sell him for $599, no less. She buys the bull, then heads to the nearest town to send her sister a telegram. At the telegraph office, she says, I need to send my sister a message telling her I bought a bull and she needs to hitch the trailer to the pickup and come get it. The operator replies, It's 99 cents a word. After buying the bull, she has exactly $1 left, enough for one word. After thinking for a moment, she says, Send her this word, comfortable. The operator looks puzzled. How will she know to bring the truck and trailer if you only send that? The sister smiles and says, My sister isn't very bright. She'll read it slowly, sounding it out as calm for the bull.
Not having a lady hawk in his life, a young male hawk was desperate for a little love action. From his perch in the woods, he spotted a dove. Down he swooped, dragged the dove into the bushes, and soon there was plenty of noise, flapping wings, and all sorts of amorous sounds. After a few minutes, the dove emerged, feathers ruffled, and said, I'm a dove, and I've been loved. But the hawk wasn't satisfied. Next, he found a lark. Once again, into the bushes they went, more flapping wings and amorous noises. Out came the lark, smiling, saying, I'm a lark, and I've been sparked. Still, that wasn't enough. Finally, the hawk spotted a duck. By now, all the animals in the woods were watching, knowing exactly where this was headed. The bushes shook harder than ever, crashing, thrashing, feathers flying everywhere. Moments later, the hawk staggered out, missing feathers, sporting a black eye, and clearly rethinking his life choices. From inside the bushes, the duck called out, I'm a drake, and you made a mistake.
Paddy O'Malley and Mick Finnegan were the two most important farmers in a small town just outside of Dublin. From an early age, they had been sworn enemies. The slightest misspoken word or sideways glance was enough to set them brawling in the street. By unfortunate circumstance, one morning they both found themselves in the local barbershop, sitting in adjacent chairs at the exact same time. You could cut the tension in the air with a knife as they sat there, stern-faced, not a yard apart, each getting a trim and a shave from a different barber. Not a word or a glance passed between them. The barbers were too afraid to start the usual small talk, worried the old enemies would start one of their infamous fights. When the barber working on Paddy finished his shave, he reached for the cologne. Paddy said, No aftershave for me. My wife would take one sniff and think I've been inside a brothel. The other barber, who had just finished, turned to Mick in the adjacent chair and asked, How about you, sir? A splash of cologne? Mick turned, looked directly at Paddy, and said, To be sure, go ahead. I'll take a splash. My wife doesn't know what the inside of a brothel smells like. And that's when the fight began. There's nothing more awkward than a doctor's receptionist who insists on playing doctor in front of a full waiting room. Well, this old gentleman had the perfect response. He walked in, stepped up to the desk, and she asked, "What are you seeing the doctor for today?" He replied, "There is something wrong with my pecker." The receptionist gasped and scolded him. "You can't say that in front of all these people. You should say something like, 'I have a sore ear,' and discuss the private details when you get in with the doctor." So the man left, waited a few minutes, then walked right back in. The receptionist, feeling smug, asked, "Yes, sir?" He smiled and said, "There's something wrong with my ear." She smiled, pleased he was obeying orders, and asked, "And what's wrong with your ear, sir?" He leaned in and said, "I'm having trouble peeing out of it." The whole waiting room lost it. An English physician emigrated to America but couldn't find a job at any hospital, so he decided to open his own little clinic. He put up a large sign on the lawn outside that said, "Any treatment, $20. If you're not cured, get $100 refund." Later that day, a hotshot American lawyer walked by, read the sign, and thought, "Now that's what I call easy money." So he went right in. Lawyer: "Hey, doc, I've completely lost my sense of taste." Doctor: "Nurse, bring me the medicine from box number 18. She did, and the doctor put 3 drops on the lawyer's tongue. "Yuck, that's kerosene." "Congratulations, your taste is back. That'll be $20. Annoyed but not giving up, the lawyer returned a few days later. "Doc, I've lost my memory. I can't remember a thing." Doctor: "Nurse, bring the medicine from box number 18. "Oh, no, you won't. That's kerosene. You did that last time." Presto, your memory has returned. That'll be $20. Now, boiling with anger, the lawyer storms back one last time, determined to win the $100. Lawyer: "Doc, my eyesight is terrible. I can't see anything." Doctor: "Oh dear, you've got me there. I don't have any treatment for that." He hands the lawyer a $20 bill. "Hey, this is only $20, not $100. Congratulations, your eyesight has been restored. That'll be $20. 2 lady golfers were out on the course one sunny spring morning. One teed off, and as she did, she watched in horror as her ball flew directly at a foursome of men playing the next hole along. The ball, at lightning speed, struck one of the men. The man immediately clasped his hands over his groin, fell to the ground, and rolled around moaning in agony. The woman rushed over to him and said, "Sir, I'm so sorry. Please let me help you. I'm a physical therapist, and I know exactly how to relieve your pain if you let me." The man said, "Oh, no worries. Give me a minute or two, and I'll be fine." However, he was clearly in agony, curled up, still holding his groin area. At her insistence, he finally agreed to let her help him. She gently moved both hands aside, loosened his pants, and placed her hands inside. She administered a tender and very enjoyable massage. For half an hour, she asked, "How does that feel?" He replied, "Lovely, sweetheart, but I still think my thumb's broken." A woman rushed into the pharmacy to pick up her medication, but when she returned to her car, she realized she'd locked her keys inside. In a real MacGyver moment, she spotted a rusty coat hanger on the ground, picked it up, and whispered, "Lord Jesus, please help me. I have no idea how to use this." She bowed her head and prayed, "Please, Jesus, send me someone to help me." Seconds later, a beat-up motorcycle pulled up beside her. A huge biker wearing a skull bandana hopped off and asked, "Looks like you could use some help, ma'am." She explained, "My daughter is very ill. I've locked my keys in the car and I need to get home fast. I'm trying to open it with this hanger, but I have no idea where to start." The biker smiled, took the hanger, and said, "Sure, watch this." In less than a minute, the car door popped open. Overcome with emotion, she hugged him tightly and cried, "Thank you, Lord Jesus, for sending me such a good man." The biker rubbed his chin and said, "Ma'am, you've got that wrong. I'm not a good man. I just got out of prison yesterday for car theft." She hugged him even tighter, looked up to the sky, and shouted, "Oh, thank you, Jesus. You even sent me a professional." Four friends who'd known each other since college days spent weeks planning the perfect girls' getaway: shopping, a show, massages, and a little spa pampering. But just 2 days before the trip, Mary's mean-spirited husband put his foot down and told her she couldn't go. Her friends were devastated, but there was nothing they could do about it, so reluctantly they went without her. 2 days later, the three women arrived at the hotel, only to find Mary sitting at the bar, calmly sipping a large margarita. "Mary," they exclaimed, "how long have you been here, and how on earth did you talk your husband into letting you come?" Mary smiled. "Well, I've been here since last night." She took another sip and continued, "Last night I was watching TV when my husband came up behind me, covered my eyes, and whispered, 'Guess who?' I moved his hands, and there he was, wearing nothing at all. He took my hand, led me to the bedroom, candles everywhere, rose petals on the bed, my favorite perfume, and right there on the bed were handcuffs and red silk ribbons. He whispered, 'Tie me up, and then do whatever you want, you dirty, dirty girl.' So I did just that." Mary raised her margarita and smiled. "So here I am." A married man tells his wife, "Honey, after all these years, I still love seeing your ass." She smiles and asks, "Is it because I have kept my girlish figure?" He responds, "No, because it means you're walking away." A couple was on their honeymoon, lying in bed, just about to consummate their marriage, when the new bride says, "I have a confession to make. I'm not a virgin." The husband replies, "That's no big deal these days." She continues, "Yeah, I've been with one guy." "Oh yeah? Who was it?" "Rory McIlroy." Rory McIlroy, the Irish golfer, the 2025 Open champion, one of the best golfers in the world today? Yep, that's the fella. "Well, he's rich, famous, and a great golfer. I can see why." The husband shrugs. They make passionate love. Afterward, the husband gets up and heads for the phone. "What are you doing?" she asks. "I'm starving. I'm going to call room service for a bite to eat." She smiles and says, "Thing is, Rory wouldn't do that." "Oh yeah? What would Rory do?" "He'd come straight back to bed and go another round." The husband hangs up and returns to bed. After round 2, exhausted but determined, he reaches for the phone again. "What now?" she asks. "I'm still hungry. I was going to order something from room service." Rory wouldn't do that." "Oh yeah? What would Rory do this time?" "Well, Rory would come back to bed and do it again." The husband drops the phone, sighs, and gives it one more heroic effort. Finally, completely worn out, he crawls back to the phone and starts dialing. "Calling room service?" she asks sweetly. "No," he pants. "I'm calling Rory McIlroy to find out what the par is for this damn hole." A traveling salesman is driving down an Arizona highway when he spots a sign: "Sisters of St. Mary, Cat House of 1,000 Pleasures, 10 miles. He shakes it off as his imagination until he sees another sign: "Come visit the Sisters of St. Mary, Cat House of 1,000 Pleasures, 5 miles. Then another: "Next right, Sisters of St. Mary, Cat House of 1,000 Pleasures, good time guaranteed." Although a God-fearing man, curiosity and wicked temptation win him over. He turns into a parking lot, gets out of his car, and sees an old stone convent with a small, simple sign that simply reads, "Sisters of St. Mary." He pulls on a rope which rings a large bell. Moments later, a nun opens the door and greets him. "What may we do for you, my son?" He replies, "I hope I'm in the right place. I saw the signs for the cat house and was interested in doing, business." The nun smiles politely. "Ah, yes, indeed you are," she says. "Please follow me." He follows the nun through twisting hallways until they stop at a large wooden door. "Knock once," she says. He knocks once and the door is opened by another nun who's holding out a tin cup. "Please place 200 in the cup, then go through the large scarlet door at the end of the hall." He takes out his wallet and quickly drops the $200 into it. His excitement mounting and his heart thumping, he rushes down the hall and passes quickly through the scarlet door. Click! The door locks behind him, and he finds himself outside the convent in a courtyard next to the front parking lot. Looking around, he spots a large sign on the far wall that reads, "Go in peace. You have just been screwed by the Sisters of St. Mary. May God be with you, sinner." A couple was invited to a swanky Halloween party by a family friend in which all attendees were required to wear masks. The wife got a terrible headache and told her husband to go to the party alone and to make sure to say hello to her family. He, being a devoted husband, protested, but she argued and said she was going to take some aspirin and go to bed, and there was no need for his good time to be spoiled by not going. So he took his costume and away he went. The wife, after sleeping soundly for about an hour, woke up without pain and, as it was still early, decided to go to the party. As her husband didn't know what her costume was, she thought she would have some fun by watching her husband to see how he acted when she was not with him. So she joined the party and soon spotted her husband in his costume, cavorting around on the dance floor, dancing with every nice chick he could and copping a little feel here and a little kiss there. Her wife went up to him, and being a rather seductive babe herself, he left his new partner high and dry and devoted his time to her. She let him go as far as he wishes, naturally, since he was her husband. After more drinks, he finally whispered a little proposition in her ear, and she agreed. So off they went to one of the cars and had passionate intercourse in the back seat. Just before unmasking at midnight, she slipped away and went home and put the costume away and got into bed, wondering what kind of explanation he would make up for his outrageous behavior. She was sitting up reading when he came in, so she asked what kind of time he had. "Oh, the same old thing. You know I never have a good time when you're not there." Then she asked, "Did you dance much?" He replied, "I'll tell you, I never even danced one dance. When I got there, I met Pete, Bill Brown, and some other guys, so we went into the spare room and played poker all evening." "You must have looked really silly wearing that costume playing poker all night," she said with unashamed sarcasm. "Actually, I gave my costume to your brother. Apparently, he had the time of his life." A group of guys are on their way to a party, but couldn't quite remember the address to the house. "I'm sure this is the one," said the driver. "Well, I have got to go to the bathroom so bad," replied one of the others. "I'll go knock on the door and check. If it's the wrong house, at least I'll get to a toilet." So he gets out and walks to the front door. He rings it once, no answer. He rings it again, still no answer. So he thinks, this is a big house, a big party. Maybe the party is outside in the backyard. So he walks around the house to the back. There was no one out there either. As he approached the back door, he was surprised to find it unlocked and open. There was obviously no one home, so he figured he'd just quickly run inside real quick and use their bathroom. No one would know. So he goes inside, but he can't find the bathroom anywhere. So he quickly ran up the stairs and searched until finally, as he opened a door to a small room, he was amazed to find a golden toilet. He had never seen anything like it, but remembering that he was in a stranger's house and that they could at any time return home, he quickly did his business and walked out. As he got in the car, he excitedly told his friends of the amazing golden toilet. They laughed in disbelief at his crazy tale. They pulled out of the driveway, arguing about it. They argued the whole way to the party. A couple of hours later, on the way home from the party, they drive past the house with the golden toilet, and the guy insists on stopping so he could prove to his friends that these people really did have a golden toilet. So they agree to check it out. So they all walk up to the front door and ring the bell, and a woman answers the door. "Excuse me, ma'am, but could you please let me show my friends here your golden toilet? They don't believe me." "So you're the guy," the woman replies, then yells to her husband in the house, "Honey, here's the guy who pooped in your tuba."
A boy named Carol had a rough childhood, constantly teased for his uncommon name. No matter where he went, the jokes followed, but over time, he learned to embrace it. Years later, he married his high school sweetheart, and when their first child was born, he let his wife choose the name. Inspired by Carol's uniqueness, she decided on something just as special. She named their daughter Love. Unfortunately, history repeated itself. Love faced endless teasing at school, just like her father had. One day, after an especially tough day, she stormed home in tears. "Why would you give me such a stupid name?" she screamed at her dad. Wanting to protect his wife, Carol took the blame. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," he said. Enraged, Love grabbed her toy dart gun and fired. A foam dart struck Carol square in the chest. Gasping dramatically, he clutched his heart and collapsed to the floor. Moments later, his wife walked through the door and saw him lying there. "Oh my God, what happened?" she cried, rushing to his side. With his last breath, Carol pulled her close and whispered, "Shot through the heart, and you're to blame. Darling, you gave love a bad name." An old man was walking through the desert with his donkey when he arrived at a village. The villagers welcomed him warmly, offering him food, shelter, and care for his donkey. During dinner, they served him camel milk. Surprised, he asked why they drank something so bitter. "We have no choice," said the village chief. "We've been cursed with an everlasting drought. Water is so scarce that we save every drop for our crops." The old man stroked his beard thoughtfully. "As it happens, I am one of the wise. I know how to bring rain, but first you must bring me a large bucket full of water. I need some to summon more." The villagers, desperate for relief, gathered every last drop they had. By morning, they had just enough to fill a bucket and presented it to the old man. He took the water, walked into his host's house, and shut the door. Moments later, a curious child peeked through the window and gasped, running back to alert the villagers. By the time they burst in, the old man had already finished washing his clothes and was calmly hanging them to dry. "Shame, shame on you, old man," the chief bellowed. "Our children go thirsty, and you wasted our last water on laundry?" But just as he finished speaking, the sky darkened. Clouds gathered overhead, and moments later, rain poured down, heavy and unrelenting, lasting for 5 days straight. The village's reservoirs overflowed, their crops thrived, the people celebrated, and the old man was honored as a hero. Even the chief apologized for ever doubting him. As the old man prepared to leave, the curious child finally worked up the courage to ask, "But how did you do it? How did you bring the rain?" The old man smiled and shrugged. "Simple. It always rains when I hang my clothes to dry." Mitch was at the racetrack, losing his shirt, when he noticed a priest step onto the track and bless the forehead of a horse in the 4th race. To Mitch's amazement, the horse, a complete long shot, ended up winning. Intrigued, he watched as the priest did the same before the 5th race. Mitch hurried to the betting window and placed a small bet on the blessed horse. Sure enough, it won too. By the 6th race, Mitch was convinced he had discovered a surefire system. He bet bigger, and once again, the priest's pick came in first. Race after race, the priest's blessings turned long-shot horses into winners. Mitch's pockets were overflowing. By the final race, Mitch knew this was his moment. He ran to the ATM, withdrew his entire life savings, and waited to see which horse would receive the priest's blessing. The priest stepped onto the track and, as expected, blessed a horse. But this time, he didn't just touch its forehead, he also blessed its eyes, ears, and hooves. Mitch was ecstatic. This had to be the ultimate winner. He bet every cent he had. Then he watched in horror as the horse came in dead last. Shocked and broke, he stormed down to the track and confronted the priest. "Father, all day the horses you blessed won, and then for the last race, you blessed that old nag, and now I've lost everything." The priest sighed and shook his head. "Son,
That's the problem with most people. You can't tell the difference between a simple blessing and last rites. A thief and a politician, who were good friends, walked into a chocolate shop. While browsing, the thief quickly swiped 3 chocolate bars and slipped them into his pocket without anyone noticing. As they left the store, he smirked and said to the politician, "See that? I'm the best thief ever. I stole 3 chocolates and no one saw a thing. Bet you can't beat that." The politician chuckled. "Oh, you think that's impressive? Watch this. I'll show you real stealing." He confidently walked back into the shop and approached the counter. "Excuse me, sir," he said to the shopkeeper, "would you like to see a magic trick?" The shopkeeper, intrigued, replied, "Sure, why not?" The politician held out his hand. "Hand me a chocolate bar." The shopkeeper passed him one, and the politician ate it. "Give me another." The shopkeeper hesitated, but handed him a second bar. The politician ate that one too. "One more, please." Now looking suspicious, the shopkeeper handed him a third bar. The politician ate that one as well. The shopkeeper frowned. "All right, but where's the magic?" The politician grinned and pointed at the thief. "Check my friend's pocket." A husband said to his wife, "I miss my family. I hope you will prepare lunch tomorrow so I can invite them. It's been a while." The wife said with a sigh, "God willing, it will be good." The husband said, "Okay, I will invite them." The next morning, the husband went to work, and at 1 o'clock he came home and said to his wife, "Did you cook lunch? My family will come in an hour." And the wife said, "No, I did not cook, because your family are not strangers. They can eat what is in the house." The husband said, "God forgive you. Why didn't you tell me yesterday that you won't cook and they will soon arriving? What will I do?" The wife said, "Call them and apologize to them. After all, they are not strangers." The husband left the house upset, and a few minutes later there was a knock on the door. The wife got up, opened the door, and was surprised to see her family, brothers, sisters, and children. Her father asked her, "Where is your husband?" She said to him, "He left a while ago." Her father said, "Yesterday your husband invited us for lunch. Is it possible for him to invite us and leave the house?" The wife was stunned by the news and began rubbing her hands, puzzled that the food in the house was not befitting for her family. She called her husband and said to him, "Why didn't you tell me that you intended to invite my family for lunch?" He said to her, "My family is your family and yours is mine. There's no difference." She said to him, "Please bring ready-made food with you when coming. There's no food at home." The husband said, "I am very far from home and your family are not strangers. Feed them from the food in the house as you wanted to feed my family."